So I'm just gonna be doing some different desensitizing stuff with the rope. I just want to start with him touching the rope while I walk around him. So this is gonna be the beginnings of tying. So you've seen him get used to just like the rope like just laid over the fence panel once. So here he wants to follow me, no big deal. I just could just lead him back over to the rope or show him what the answer is here. There we go. Have him touch the rope. There we go, and then reinforce him. But now I want to change it up a little bit to where if the rope is more than just one strand over, so I just had it like halved over. Now there's multiple loops on the panel. I want him to stand still while I walk around him, and then I want him to get used to the rope like being in the bucket and moving around on the panel and stuff like that. But this is all really important stuff to think about for training a horse to tie. So most domestic horses you probably aren't going to have to think about this, but with Atlas I do. Atlas was terrified of ropes, absolutely terrified. So I have to break it down into tiny little pieces and then make sure he's cool with all those pieces in different scenarios. So he's cool with just having the rope hanging over the fence once. Now I have to have the rope hanging over multiple times. Then the rope moves, then he touches the rope, then he touches the rope while I move around. The rope is in front of him, it's around him, it's on his legs, it's in the food bucket. Like, those are not necessarily things that you're going to have to teach a domestic horse to do. Unless they're absolutely terrified of ropes because someone scared them with it, that's probably not going to have to be something you're going to have to do. For certain Mustangs, it is, though. And that's what I have to do with Atlas. So if you're like, oh gosh, you've been working on this for a long time, yeah, because I have to break it down in little steps for him and make sure he's totally confident and willing to be cool with it. I'm not going to just scare him and make him do it. That's not the point here. I don't care if I can scare him in and hard tie him to something. That's not what I want. I want him a willing participant. I want him not afraid of the ropes. I want him counter conditioned to where the ropes mean great things are happening. So when he sees a rope, oh, this is fantastic. I'm going to earn rewards. That's what I really want. And that does take time. And I'm totally fine and willing to have that take time. Some people aren't. And that's okay too, but this is what I want Atlas to do, and this is what I want from him and from my training is just lots of little steps. I want to build his confidence. I want him totally cool with the rope in different situations. And his fear was so great that this is what needed to happen. So that's what we're working on. But so it's just gonna be little different clips of him working on the rope. So it was just gonna be the rope looks a little bit different from the round pen panel, and I worked on walking around him. And then he was not comfortable with eating. See how he pulls his head out of the bucket so fast? There's food in that bucket, and I just wanted the rope to be near the bucket so he could eat out of it. Because eventually I want that rope can if the rope drags on the ground or if it's just kind of hanging off his halter, and I throw some food in the bucket, I don't want it to be scary. So I want him to get used to it and just eat while the rope's in the bucket. And again, that's not going to be a big issue for most horses, but you can see how fast he pulls his head out of there. See, he's like, oh no, I can't do it. And you can just see that there's a little tiny bit of the rope in that bucket, and that's already too scary. So I probably should break this down a little bit more, pull that rope out of the bucket or when his head's not in there so I don't scare him inadvertently, but just have the rope just kind of hang next to him and pull it away from the bucket so it's not quite as scary, and then bring it a little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit in the bucket, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So there I break it down a little bit for him, just pull it out a little bit. See, he's still not willing. It's just on the edge, that very top edge of the bucket, and he's like, oh, I can't do it. And you've seen me throw handfuls of food in there, but this is what I'm talking about. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of the video. He is so afraid of that rope. He doesn't want it near his face. He thinks it's gonna like grab him or chase him or follow him. So we don't want any of that. I just want him to get used to it, just being in the bucket, being near the bucket while he eats. So just working on a little bit of counter conditioning here. So bring that rope further away from the bucket. There we go. So just kind of breaking the lesson down even more. And I really thought he'd be okay with this too. But even from this point, like I just kind of have it on the edge there. I should just have it just kind of holding in my hand and see if he can eat out of it. Then bring it a little bit closer, then bring it a little bit closer, then get to this point where I'm at now, then add a little bit more of the rope to the bucket, a little bit more, a little bit more. But he's just not quite ready for that. So now I've pulled it all the way out of the bucket. So let's see if he can eat out of it. So, ooh, too much in there. So yeah, I've got too much rope in the bucket right now. I definitely need to break this down a little bit more. See how he's trying to offer a different behavior. He's trying to touch that cone instead. It's just too hard for him. It's too scary. And it sounds like it'd be crazy, Like most horses are not going to be that scared of the rope. He's showing me with his behaviors that he's afraid of it. They're not, you don't need to have a horse running away, rearing, bucking, bolting to show them that to have them show you that they're afraid of something. So it's very subtle. So he's slow to put his head in the bucket. He's keeping his head all the way over to the side. And then he was pulling his head out of the bucket really fast. Those are all going to be him showing that he's afraid of that rope. So this is looking a little bit better. So this isn't how I would go about doing this again, but I wanted to show kind of the problems and the behaviors and then why talk about why he was doing a little bit. So I definitely would have had that rope further away from the bucket in the beginning and then again slowly brought it closer, but I want to make sure that that point is very clear. And I had never had a horse at this point that was so afraid that I couldn't even had him eat out of a bucket with just a rope next to him. So, I didn't know how to go about it either. So, but I definitely would have made some changes to it, made him feel a little bit more successful. Because yeah, just showing him where the food is. He knows where the food is. He's just afraid to go get it. And probably adding some more reinforcement too. So like when he's got his head in that bucket, I could click and then add more and continue like click like this is the behavior that I want. When his head's in the bucket and he's being pretty brave, click add food to the bucket, click add food to the bucket so that he's got more incentive to do it as well. So I just took the bucket away and just went back to targeting on the ground. And this is why I thought he was kind of ready for that this at that point because he does target on the ground really well. He targets it on the fence really well in my hand. He's cool with me dragging it. So I thought he would be okay with that, but he definitely wasn't. And that's okay. No big deal. So same thing with it kind of on the ground. Just clipped it to his halter there. I just want him to target it while it's on the ground, while it's hanging from his halter, and just work on that a little bit. Just reinforce him for just having that rope move around. He's cool with that. It was just it being in that bucket that was scary. So it was very specific. I thought he would have generalized it though, so that's why I was like a little confused by it. But so I'm gonna go ahead. We gave him a little jackpot and work on something else. So kind of same thing with the rope here, and he's cool with all that stuff. I'm just gonna go through and review a little bit things we've worked before. So tossing that rope over, having that rope move around on the round pen panel. Cool with that. And then this is going to be my next thing here. So you've already seen him target the rope while I move around him. Next, I want to just take the end of the rope and just put it through the halter here. So I'm just looping it through. So you can see earlier it just fell right off. That's exactly what I want. I don't want to attach it hard in any way because he's just not quite ready for it. So I just want him to get used to having that rope come out of the halter, touch the bottom of his lips, under his face. I don't want any part of that to be scary because I don't. If he wants to back up or pull away, that's totally fine. I just don't want him to be afraid when that happens. So I'm just kind of preemptively working on that now and working on some desensitizing with that now and just getting him used to having that rope under his chin too because that used to scare him as well. And this looks pretty good. So he's totally cool with that rope coming out from underneath the halter because I'm eventually going to work on him just tying like that. So he'll just have that rope looped through the halter, no big deal, and then I'll go ahead and leave for a little bit of time, and then eventually I'll turn the rope around and I'll actually clip it and just lay it over the panel, and then eventually loop it over, and then use the tie ring. So that's kind of the order of exercises that I would do here. And I'm just going to do that same exact thing on the other side, make sure he's cool with it out of that other eye. He seems totally cool. And I want to make sure he's also cool with it just kind of looping there because it's like kind of hanging from his halter. And he seems totally fine with that as well. But making sure that all the pieces work before I actually do anything that looks more like tying. But all these little pieces are really important too. So that looks really good. I'm gonna give him a little bit of a jackpot and we'll just call it a day on that. And I did want to add one more thing because I was ending the session here and then I liked that I left and he wanted to touch the rope here. So I'm not even there and he wants to like touch it and he wants to stand there and he stays. He doesn't just leave immediately. He wants to stay and participate. So I really like that. That's a good sign for him, especially since he was so afraid of the ropes. This is perfect. I'm really happy with that. I just wanted to leave in a little bit of the clip here because like you can see the rope kind of blowing in the wind. He's not afraid of it at all. So I'm really happy with that. That's a big deal for him. So that was really cool. See how it's blowing in the wind here? And he's just kind of watching me. That's perfect. And I do come back in here in a second and just reinforce him. So I love that he's like targeting it, even though it's blowing around. Like for him, that is huge. So that was really cool. So I just come back in and I'm just gonna reinforce him for that. That was really cool. But yeah, I just wanted to show that with the clicker training, he wants to stay, he wants to participate. He doesn't just leave the first second I leave him.